Hola amigos, this is Level 12 and today we are going to be finding out what makes a good Hetalia OC. Now, before I continue, let's get on to my disclaimer, because I like to do those. Disclaimer, since the word good is a subjective term, I'll explain more in detail what exactly a good OC is. I feel as if we can all agree, however, that an OC that is Mary/Gary Sue falls into the category of bad. Also, I am not judging the quality of art, as I cannot do art, but I do know how to do characterization, and I'm only going to judge what I know how to do. However, I will judge design choices made. Now, design and quality are two very different things. Quality of art, I'm not very much concerned about. Design choices, like hair color, eye color, skin color, is what I'm concerned about. If I asked you to draw me a Pakistani OC, because that is one of my OCs that I have made, and I have to use a darker color for her skin when I decide to remake her because I used a way too light color. Anyways, and you hand me someone that is blonde, blue-eyed, and fair-skinned, I will tell you to redraw it because no one from Pakistan looks like that. At least no one native to Pakistan looks like that. First, what qualifies as a good OC, at least for Hetalia? Every fandom will have different qualifiers for what makes a good OC. Like, in the Fullmetal Alchemist universe, which I used to have an OC for that, it was a homunculi, however she could do alchemy, which is not how a homunculi works, so that qualifies as a bad OC. If you have a homunculi OC that can do alchemy, you're doing something very wrong because they, in the show, cannot do alchemy at all. I think it's even proven why they cannot. 1. What qualifies as a good OC for Hetalia is historical accuracy. 2. Looks like they are from that region/place in the world. 3. Their likes and interests correlate to the first two above, but also correlate from the society itself. And 4. Their personality is remotely similar to someone that lives in said area. Now that's like Japan being very polite. Japanese people are stereotypically polite. And I'll get more into this in a few moments. Historical accuracy. First, Lithuania is not friendly/scared of Russia, as Russia, I think during the Cold War time, killed about 1/3 of the Lithuanian population. If Hema had made them buddy-buddy, there would have been tons of issues. Austria and Hungary are close despite different personalities. Hungary, in my opinion, is way more flamboyant than Austria. Austria-Hungary was once a single nation. Poland and Lithuania are close, again, clashing personalities, but they had the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth because someone from Poland and someone from Lithuania got married. Greece and Turkey dislike each other. There have been many wars between Greece and Turkey / the Ottoman Empire. England and France dislike each other. They have been competing for ages. Like, there was the 100-Year War, and then many years later there was the French and Indian War. Pretty sure there were wars between those times in which stuff happened. The Czech Republic and Slovakia are two separate nations despite earlier drawings. Now, what Hema was originally going to do was to have one character to be both Czechia and Slovakia, like the old Czechoslovakia. However, they separated, in the easy terms I can define. They were not compatible, and it was not financially sane to stay together. They were both two young nations that did not know how to handle a democracy-ish government, so they decided, it might be easier to govern two separate nations with a lesser population than to clump it all in one, which was a very smart idea for them. Just saying. And, 2, looks like they are from that region. Now, I tried to find maps with the least amount of OCs that I could. However, if 1 or 2 sneaks in, I can't really help that. These are the best maps I got. Now, as you can see, everyone from America, well, at least Canada and America themselves, are blonde, blue-eyed, and fair-skinned because people generally from here look like that. Cuba, although he is still part of the North American continent, has darker skin and darker hair because he looks like that. Same with Europe, same with Asia, same with Africa, same with Australia. Here's a closer map. As you can see, the Europeans. Now, not all Europeans are blonde, blue-eyed, with fair-skinned. Some of them are actually darker, like Romano, but that's because it's very agriculture-centered, and it's closer to like the other continents where darker skinned people are from. And okay, let me use my example again. If I ask you to make me a European OC, which I can't really think of a European country that hasn't been made into Hetalia, let's do Andorra because I know about Andorra. If I asked you to make me an Andorra OC and you gave me someone that looked like Turkey, I would ask you to go redraw it to make it look more like France or Monaco because it was also, just like Monaco, Andorra was owned by France. It's... You gotta make your OC look like they're from that place, because if you show someone, again, a Pakistani OC, and they look like they're from Europe, that isn't gonna go over very well. Looks like, again, Asia. Now, some of y'all are gonna get on me about why Russia's here. Russia is the only Asian person, and I guess this would be more if you had a Siberia OC, which I don't think technically you can, because I don't think anyone really lives up there. I know people were once exiled there, but the reason they were exiled there, they aren't most likely coming back. Anyways, Russia is both on the continent of Europe and Asia, so he's generally split between the two. However, since I think there's more land mass of Russia on Asia, he's counted as an Asian continent, but whatever. Russia is literally the only one you can give to me as a white Asian and say, here, and I'm just like, alright, fam. But also, as you can see, most people from this part of Eastern Asia, at least, are rather fair-skinned, with still dark hair color, but the more you go to the western part of Asia, they're going to start getting darker, like India, Turkey, and Seychelles. I think this is Thailand? About 80% sure that's Thailand, and I'm not quite too familiar with Thailand, so anyways. Next is likes, interests, and personalities. Austria likes music. Austria is historically known for having amazing musicians. Russia likes vodka. Vodka is a cheap and easy drink to make, often given out during the Soviet Union rule, because in Russia it was, again, cheap and easy. Also, vodka just means water in Russian. You're not going to get away from that. France, China, and Turkey have a gourmet food club. I know for a fact French and Chinese food are very good, and there's wide variety. I don't know about Turkish food, though. Never really had it. Don't really know if I ever will. Italy is good at art, while Romano isn't. Northern Italy more heavily experienced the Renaissance than the South did due to agriculture. Switzerland is good with guns. Switzerland is a top gun manufacturer in the world. Japan is polite and kind. Japanese people are typically stereotyped as polite and kind. Now with all this being said, you cannot add your own sense of flair to your OC. Such as Poland, he's a cross-dresser. You're not going to find many Polish people cross-dressing due to the very religious aspects of Poland. Hungary is a fujoshi. I'm about 98% sure a bunch of Hungarians aren't fujoshis. I'm going to say this, but I've never heard the stereotype that England's can't cook. In my opinion, I think some of English food is very good, but I'm assuming that's one of the things. I won't comment on the occult stuff because Europeans just in general have been very fascinated with occult, weird culture stuff. Anyways, so next we are going to be talking about what a nation has to have to live. 1. It needs a population. It needs people to claim it that they are there. This is why Prussia is also able to withstand time, because people will still claim themselves as East Germans or Prussians, along with North and South Italy. People will claim, oh, I'm from Northern Italy or I'm from Southern Italy. 2. A capital and or a very populated city. This is why ancient civilizations are able to exist, because in Egypt, I'm pretty sure in ancient Egypt there wasn't necessarily a capital, but since it was all clumped together in one little mass that was their quote-unquote capital, it was a very populated city. That's why micronations exclude this rule, as, again, usually their only city is their most populated. 3. It needs an economy, because this determines a nation's health, as seen with England. When his economy goes down the drain and death visits him in the Great Depression, all the nations are really sick. And this is what the real world, okay, we're stepping out of the anime world, watch your step, it's a little bumpy, it's a little scary, don't worry, I'm here to hold your hand. What counts as a nation? 1, it has a permanent population. This is why Sealand cannot be a real nation, because last I checked it only had 12 residents, and those 12 can necessarily leave. But if Sealand had about 1,000 residents, which I don't think 1,000 people would fit on that boat, that is a permanent population. At least in my opinion, 1,000 should be a permanent population, because there's less than 1,000 people living in my town. 2, a defined territory. This is also why Sealand and other micronations can't necessarily be a nation, because Sealand's an oil rig and most of the other nations are people's homes. That isn't necessarily a defined territory, that's just the land they live on. And if they don't pay the taxes on that land can be taken away. 3, it needs a form of government. Now, I'm not going to explain this because I hope you know what a form of government is, or at least some idea. It rules the country. Blah. 4, it has the ability to enter into relations with other nations. Now, micronations have entered into relations with other micronations. However, if Malaysia entered into a relationship with Mexico, the U.S. would have a lot to say about this, because this is why when Trump contacted Taiwan and China got all up on us, because technically Taiwan is owned by China and thus we cannot make relations with them. That was very scary, and this is why you cannot do that, because one nation or another, one home nation or the other, is going to get very, very angry and offended. Also, it has to be an unspoken rule. It has to be recognized by someone else. This is why the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus is not a micronation, but a de facto state. It is recognized. Now, I don't know why. I think Australia recognized Y, or something happened with Y, which is what she can hold over Sealand's and Saborgia's head. And all of this comes from a 1933 publication, Convention on Rights and Duties of States. Now, I know that's a rather old document, but it's the best I can do, and I'd rather cite my sources than someone say evidence. Sorry, I've been watching The Armored Skeptic a lot. You should watch his stuff. He's very good and very funny. Now we are getting into examples of bad OCs. Now again, this is not judging the art, this is more or less judging the reason why they are OCs. First is Pangea. Now, in the next slide I will go more into depth, so if none of y'all know what Pangea is, y'all will see, because life. Anyways, again, all of these designs are pretty neat and great, except for this one, and I'll tell you why. Pangea formed at the very end of the Paleozoic era, entering into the Mesozoic era, and before the Paleozoic era ended, there were no dinosaurs. Also there were no people. Thus, this girl riding a dinosaur cannot exist. It cannot happen. Pangea also had no people living on it. Thus, it cannot have a capital. It cannot have a population. It cannot have an economy. It can't have anything. You can't base her personality off anything. I pointed with my finger, you can't see it. This looks like a very hippie-ish person. This one looks more like an agriculture person that's village leader type. This looks more like an adventurer. These three things all don't express what Pangea was, because Pangea, in the terms of what we think of a nation doing, it literally did nothing. This chart right here I actually had to learn in school, so if you think I don't know anything, this was my homework, basically. As you can see, Pangea, near the end of the Paleozoic, during the Permian, started to form, and as you can see here, there were just the basic reptiles, major extinctions, and then we go into the Triassic, when Pangea started to break up, and we have the first dinosaurs. We have more dinosaurs over here. So when Pangea was alive, there was basically just kind of this stuff, no people and no really well-defined animals, at least not well-defined land animals. We don't exactly see that until right in here. And then you see at the very top of this, humans are in the Quaternary period, meaning humans arrived well after Pangea broke up and technically died. Now here is an accurate drawing of Pangea. I put accurate in quotation marks because, again, Pangea can't really have a personality, and this character doesn't have a personality. It's just a woman in a white dress with white hair and golden eyes. I feel like this is a pretty good representation of what Pangea was. It was literally nothing. Well, I mean, it was land, but it literally had nothing to do in what we think of a nation doing today. We think of nations today making relationships and economy, doing stuff, relative to affecting its society. Pangea literally did nothing. It had no people. It had nothing making any decisions. No one was doing anything because no one was alive. Pangea has no heart. It has no economy. It has no history. It can't have a personality. Pangea, I can't stress this enough, Pangea did nothing in terms of what we think of a nation doing today, which is why it is counted as a bad OC in my opinion. Next is Europe/the European Union. Now, what I'm going to say for Europe counts also for any other continent OCs, including Antarctica, because it also does not have a permanent population. Europe OCs/European Union OCs encompass about 26 nations, as I read in my research, because the UK is leaving? I don't know if it's left yet. I don't do much with European crap. Anyways, so as you can see, you get a big diversity of European OCs. This person looks like kind of an ancient adventurer put into the modern world. This looks like a flight attendant. This looks like someone from World War II. And this is just a child prancing around. Again, you're glopping together a bunch of nations that have relatively nothing in common. Let's take Germany and Switzerland, for example. They both speak German, but their German is very different. This is like in other English-speaking countries, our English is different. This is like when I took Spanish my first year, my teacher was from Colombia, and in Colombia they pronounce the double L's with a J-ish sound, and in other places they do not do that, and now I'm stuck doing that, and people get mad at me, and I'm just like, blame my teacher. This is what he taught me. But anyways, and from what I read of the European Union, it's not necessarily a nation, but a group of a bunch of nations to have easy trade going through them and people being able to pass from, say, one nation to the other without needing a visa stamped or a passport stamped. And it kind of reminded me of a money-loving hippie when more went along with this design, but just, you can't have a continent OC because let's take the continent of North America. You have America, Canada, and Mexico. At least those are the big ones. I know there's like Greenland and all the little surrounding islands, but let's take the big three ones just as for example's sake. I would argue that, yes, you could probably connect Canada and America, however, we're still very different. The Canadian way of life is way different from our way of life. I mean, Canada's a great country. Please, if you go anywhere in your life, go to Canada. It's amazing. But Mexico is highly, highly different from America and Canada. You can't make the North America OC because it's impossible. We're just so different. This goes for any continent OC. Europe was just the easiest one to find, and I wanted to learn about the European Union. Anyways, that's why these OCs can't work. There's too much personality. There's too much society. And again, there's no capital. Yes, there's an economy in the European Union, but you're, again, clumping a bunch of nations together, and to make one personality, all of that would be really hard. In my mind, what you would have to do is have a music-loving, like a person that loves music, loves food, loves manufacturing, loves vodka, loves all these different, well, Russia isn't part of the European Union, but loves all these different things, and morphing it into one person, that's going to be very, very hard. Anyone that can do that, I commend them, but again, you're mixing a bunch of cultures and societies, man. You can't do that. Next and finally is a Native America / North American continent OC. Now, the reason you can't do this, even though I'm not even going to say that, the reason you can't do this, plain and simple, is because the North American Indians, the Native Americans, all of their cultures were very different. Just last year, learning about my state history, we had to learn about the Indian tribes that lived there before the Europeans got there. The main ones were the Yamasee, the Cherokee, and one other one that I can't remember at this moment. I'm sorry, gosh. I love history, but let's get a little bit more modern before I start loving it more. In the video that we watched describing the Native American tribes, it literally said the languages of English, French, and Spanish have more in common than any Native American language ever. You could learn the Cherokee language, but then when you tried to talk to the Yamasee, and by the way, these tribes hated each other. They were land-grubbing people. This is why they did not like us coming here. People are very territorial, especially the Native Americans, which is in their right. They were there first, but we're not going to argue that because of the Sioux pipeline. Anyways, you could not learn the Cherokee language and then go to the Yamasee and try to speak the Cherokee language to the Yamasee. They are not going to like that. Also, those two tribes are both in the eastern part of America. Those are their own separate thing. Try taking the Cherokee language and going all the way up to the Canada Indians. I forget what, the Pacific Northwest Indians, pretty sure that's one region. You would be very different. Going from the east all the way up to the Northwest Pacific Indian, their way of life would be very different. Up there, they fished a heck of a lot more than they did down there. And you go to the Great Plains Indian and start comparing them between the two, you would see a high difference. There is no ocean in the Great Plains, and there's no water. Well, there's no ocean versus what I learned about and up in the Pacific Northwest. They had a very different type of lifestyle. They had no waterway system like we did, and what they most likely had up there, I haven't learned about them that much yet. And again, I don't really like these designs, especially this one. No military uniform back then looked like this, and I know some of them are probably modernized, but it doesn't look like that anymore. No one back then had this type of outfit. If you look at old military outfits, to me they seem very impractical. Also, they all tend to look a lot like Pocahontas, which there was a lot more Native Americans than Pocahontas. I don't know if you know that, but there were. And here is just a map of Native American places, and this is a map of some major tribes and where they were located. Again, Southeast Indians are going to be very different from the Northwest Coast Indians, these Pacific Indians right here, because again, they had a very larger coastline and it was more compact into this coastline, so they are going to have a higher fishing type of economy than we are. Down here, I know they did a lot of farming, they did a lot of trade on the rivers and stuff. Here, I know they did a lot of hunting for the buffalo, but they never hunted more than they needed. And here, again, you can just see where all the tribes were located. Again, these are, again, very, very just like the big ones, like the Cherokee. Cherokee is probably the biggest tribe. And then we have the Navajo and the Sioux. And now we have I'm assuming this is Hetalia related, because I'm just highly hoping it was, because when I typed in Native American OCs, I saw this and I'm like, oh, this is a good idea. Yes, you can have Native American OCs as long as they are representative of a single tribe. Now, do these look like how these tribes people look? I don't know, and I'm not going to judge them on that. I'm going to judge them on how they act, because I know the Cherokee, they were very strong. You need a very strong OC. Any of the others, I don't know anything about, so I can't do anything with that, but whatever, I'm not arguing that. But yes, if you want to have a Native America OC or a Native American OC, you can do that. I don't care, because those were single entities and you can justify us to having them. Now let's take my OCs. All but one of them are U.S. state OCs, and most of them are southern state OCs. There's this thing in America called the Bible Belt. If you try to make a single OC representing the Bible Belt, that would not work. Why? Because there's tons of different types of Southern along that Bible Belt. Louisiana is counted as Southern, and so is South Carolina. However, our accents are very different. Louisiana has more of a French undertone to it because the French settled there. We have a more English-ish type derivative math term. Let's hope it works in my Englishing right here. You could have, but that's more from the England-Britain side. That's why our accents are different. But again, if you wanted to clump them all together into one big southern cornbread ball, it won't work, because we are very different. Now, let me put it this way. During a period in America in 1860, I think it started, was when our Civil War was. I have seen on different blogs and different websites that people are wanting to make a Confederate America OC, which I have no problem with this. South Carolina seceded from the Union, thus making them their own nation. However, the U.S. didn't really like that, which is why we had the Civil War, and a bunch of nations followed. We also bullied a few nations. Why did I say nations? States followed, and South Carolina bullied a few other states to follow. But that's only because they were in proximity, and mostly it was North Carolina because he couldn't stick up for himself. Anyways, I don't even mind you having a Confederate OC, because they had their own capital. I think it was in Richmond, Virginia was their capital, which was very close to the northern capital. And also, those people had one goal in mind, was to keep their way of life. So, yes, I don't care if you have a Confederate America OC, because, yes, that was its own little nation for like 5 years, and it it was its own entity. You're not grouping together a bunch of different entities to make one giant thing that has nothing in common. For like, let's go back to the European Union. Yes, they're grouped together, and yes, they have a flag, and yes, they have people that work for the European Union, but this is more for a financial thing than anything else. Anyways, so this was just my opinion on OCs, and you can disagree if you want. I don't really care. I would actually love to hear your opinions on what you think would make a good OC, what makes a bad OC. And also, I do have a special coming out for when we reach 100 subscribers. We're like 8 people away. I can't believe it. I will be sharing my OCs. I have like 9 of them. 8 of them are the US states. And one of them is Pakistan, because I read a book about Pakistan and I was birthed with inspiration to write that OC. But for those that do have pictures drawn, they're not very good, and I know I have to fix Alaska because I shared it with a few friends and they were like, that sounds a lot like Russia. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta fix some stuff with him, but I'm working on him. Also working on getting West Virginia done before that happens, because I have just the regular Virginia done, and a lot of states interact with West Virginia, but whatever, that is neither here nor there. And I do hold my OCs up to all of the standards I have listed before. The only thing I like play fast and loose with is their ages, because I just like because in my opinion, if I were to do it that way, then South Carolina would be way, way, way older than California, and it's based a little bit on size, population, and just like South Carolina has very bad South Carolina is ranked low in a lot of places, which is why she is really young, along with Georgia. And West Virginia I will probably make the youngest, because West Virginia just sucks, man. Anyways, that's a little mini rant about my OCs and what will happen when we reach 100 subscribers. Anyways, like and subscribe for more anime otaku related content. Ciao, chicos!